Okay, for this video, I'm going to mention the advantages of using translation when teaching English in the classroom. And I'm also going to mention the most important concepts from each chapter throughout the course. Well, to begin with, let's talk about translation. To be honest, I didn't expect translation to be as important as I think it is now. Probably because my teachers, well, when I was learning English, my teachers told me not to use Spanish when teaching English. Probably that's the reason. So I didn't think of translation as an option until recently, to be honest. Okay, so I'm going to mention from chapter one. What really dragged my attention is the fact that the first translation took place in the Egyptian culture. It is here actually, and there was the belief that in order to share knowledge to Earth, God's language needed to be translated. So it began some translation from Hebrew into Arabic in order to improve agriculture and knowledge about math. Yes, so here, the idea here is that translation took place long time ago. And to be honest, I think that translation was a recent method. But now I realize that translation was used or has been used for a long time. Okay, that's from chapter one. That's what really dragged my attention. Now, moving on from other concepts. Okay, from chapter number two, it's which is translating or translation. Okay, well, so it talks about the process of translating. It says, I'm gonna mention some of the most important methods. Here we have the practical approach. It says the practical approach determines how to transfer the contents of the source into the target. It therefore deals with the process of translating. Here it mentions some factors, okay? The most important factors to consider when translating, which are the influence, the decision making, including communicative function, target language, textual style, potential audience, and the requirements of the host culture and linguistic system. Okay, another model is a model for translating. There is the text linguistic model. Okay, there is also the sociocultural translation, the computational model, and the interdisciplinary model. Okay, then it says the critical approach. The critical approach presupposes a finished translation. There is a difference between literary criticism of translations and translation criticism. The first focuses on the literary or textual qualities of the work as it exists in translation. The translation is judged on its own merits as a target language text. Translation criticism, on the other hand, appraises the text as a translation. Well, it also mentions translation theory today, and it says that there are some questions that are often asked, questions that we need to take into consideration. Here are the questions. It says, what do we want to preserve in a target text, or what is in the source text? Do all foreign values disappear? Is everything of value bound to its linguistic form? Can information content be being separated from linguistic and textual form? It also mentions the overt versus covert translation. Okay. Okay, and also it makes use of pragmatics. It mentions pragmatics, and it says, presupposition and interference play a great role in retrieving utterance meaning to create a TT which is functionally equivalent to the source text. The text type and register have to be carefully preserved. Well, I think here it is very important to take into consideration pragmatics because we are not just translating words, okay? We are also translating cultural items and words or ideas that are not mentioned in a clear way, okay, or the behind message. Here's where pragmatics takes place. Okay, now from chapter 2, it says teaching translation, and it says there is increasing awareness of the importance of the different modes of translating and interpreting, of which the best known, literary translation, occupies only a tiny slot. Okay, and this is the translation we worked with within the course. We made use of literary translation in which we translate all the words as they are from one language to another, and then we had to look for words, for synonyms, words that make sense because of sociocultural elements. Okay, for example. Okay, from chapter 3, I think it is also important to make use of to mention the sociocultural knowledge. It says it is extremely important in translating, more than translating language. The translator is immersed in a kind of cultural transfer, which requires her to be bicultural more than bilingual. So here again, we have to take into consideration sociocultural knowledge. So in order to be a good translator, it's not enough. Uh, it's not enough to be bilingual. Of course, we have to be proficient at both at L1 and L2, but most importantly, or equally importantly, we need to be we need to have a high sociocultural knowledge. Okay, if we want to be accurate with our translations. Okay, it also mentions some difficulties when translating, which are lack of proficiency in the target language, lack of proficiency in the source language, lack of intercultural competence or sensitivity. Okay, and finally, here's chapter 4. For me, I consider chapter 4 as the most important one, since it has to do with language, with using language, teaching as a tool. So here the idea is that we can use translation in order to benefit our students, in order to benefit our teaching. And it says the use of translation as additional tool to improve awareness of differences existing between the two language systems, L1 and L2, is the purpose of using translation in the class, obviously. Well, it says, according to Stern, advantages, okay, advantages of using translation in the classroom. It says, we can check accuracy. Number 2, awareness of contents and form. And I'm going to quote source, which is the author of the famous New Headway series. And it says, by re-examining the target language in the light of translation, students develop a cognitive awareness of its form and function, and of its place within the language system. Areas of potential translation are confronted, thus drawing students' attention to main problems, as they realize that forms do not transfer, or that one language is richer, more precise, more logical, more versatile at certain points than the other. Their awareness of language systems in general develops. Okay, another benefit, according to source. Number 3, cognitive psychological reasons. As soon as our students start learning to read and write, awareness of language as an object exists more often than not in an unconscious way. It says, it also mentions the grammar translation method. Okay. Okay. It says, source also mentions translation can still be an extremely valuable exercise for the following reasons. And students can think they understand what an item means, but in fact be wrong. Translating it into their L1 shows this part. Another reason, students' cognitive awareness of English compared to their own language is heightened. Another reason, many students no doubt translate either consciously or subconsciously anyway, and formalized, this should ensure accuracy. Okay, it also mentions some steps to do translation, such as the parallel text, translating L1, L2, textual features. Okay, what we cannot do when translation, what we shouldn't do when translating. Process versus the product. Well, it says that the process is more important than the product. Okay, it mentions that we have to, um, well, let's move on to the conclusion. Okay, well, I think that having said that, I think that translation is a very useful tool because we make our students aware of how the two systems work. Okay, we make them aware of their similarities and differences between L1 and L2, and through this we can achieve a lot of things. Okay, we also can use translation as a tool to see if our students are getting the idea. So there are very difficult items to explain when being a teacher. Okay, so I think that translation is a very useful tool to achieve this. Okay, so thank you so much. That's been everything, and see you soon. Goodbye.